Welcome back to the deep dive. It's funny. Today we're tackling something we all deal with every single day. I mean, every single day.
Yeah,
And that's understanding people better. Sometimes it feels like I'm navigating a social maze,
right.
but thankfully, how to read people like a book is
Yeah.
going to give us some tools
Yeah.
to maybe speed read personalities and decode those hidden intentions.
That's right.
Just connect better, with everybody around us.
It's really fascinating because, we often approach these social interactions with a lot of assumptions,
Right.
but there's a real science behind how people think and how they behave and how they communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And this deep dive is going to try to unpack those scientific insights so you can use them in your own life.
Okay, so let's start with the foundation, personality. It's that unique blend of traits that makes us who we are,
Right?
but it's not just about being a people person or a loner, is it?
No, absolutely not. Think of personality as a spectrum,
Mm.
not a binary. One way to map this spectrum that a lot of people are familiar with is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI.
MBTI, I've seen that.
Right.
Yeah.
You might be familiar with those four-letter acronyms like INFJ or ESTP.
I am. I've seen it online,
Yeah.
but honestly, I get a little overwhelmed.
Sure,
Yeah.
I totally get that. There are 16 distinct personality types, and each one has its own set of strengths and challenges.
Wow.
But what's valuable for you is that understanding even just the basics of MBTI can drastically improve communication at work,
Okay.
especially when you're dealing with different personality types.
Okay, so give me an example. How could knowing someone's MBTI type help me in like a work situation?
So let's say you need to present a new project idea to a colleague who has a strong preference for sensing on the MBTI scale.
Uh-huh.
They thrive on those concrete facts and details. So you want to tailor your presentation to focus on data, step-by-step plans, and those practical applications.
Oh,
And avoid getting too abstract or theoretical because they may just tune out.
okay, so it's about speaking their language.
Exactly.
Got it. What if I'm dealing with someone who leans more toward intuition?
Then you can play up the big picture, the potential impact, the innovative aspects of your idea.
Mhm.
They're less concerned with those, kind of nitty-gritty details
Uh-huh.
and more excited by that overall vision.
So MBTI can be like a cheat sheet
Hmm.
for tailoring my communication style to
That's
different
cool.
colleagues. That's
Fun.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of tailoring, how about those classic labels of introvert and extrovert?
Sure.
The book kind of dives deeper into this, going beyond just those surface level definitions.
Yeah, one of the most insightful concepts in the book is the social fuse for introverts.
Mm-hmm.
It explains how introverts have a limited amount of energy for social interaction,
Uh,
and they require alone time to recharge.
wow.
So if you're an extrovert working with an introvert, recognize that they might need some quiet time
Right.
after a big meeting or a brainstorming session.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I always wondered why, some colleagues seem to kind of withdraw after these intense social situations.
Yeah.
And now I realize they're not being antisocial, they're just like
Right.
recharging.
Exactly. It's about understanding those differences in how we process energy and social interaction.
Okay, so we've got personality covered. What's next in our deep dive?
Let's move on to communication styles because,
Okay.
let's be honest, sometimes it feels like we're speaking different languages, even when we're using the same words.
Oh, tell me about it. I've definitely had those conversations where I'm like,
Right.
wait, were we even in the same room?
Yeah. Okay, so,
So how to read people like a book.
okay.
It outlines 4 primary communication styles: passive-aggressive, and assertive.
Okay.
Each style has its own telltale signs,
Yeah.
from body language cues to verbal patterns.
Okay, let's break those down. So
Okay.
passive communicators,
Yeah, they're the ones that beat around the bush,
Well-
draping hints instead of being direct.
spot on. They often use phrases like, it doesn't really matter, or whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
And their body language might also reflect this lack of assertiveness, avoiding eye contact, slumped shoulders, speaking softly. They might agree on the surface,
Yeah.
but their nonverbal cues tell a very different story.
Yeah. Okay. So then we have the aggressive communicators.
Yes.
And they don't beat around the bush. They just bulldoze right through it.
Yeah, they tend to be loud, demanding, and may even resort to threats or intimidation to get their point across. Their body language can be quite intense.
Mm-hmm.
Strong eye contact, aggressive posture, and not much room for compromise.
Oh, boy. Okay. And then there's that dreaded combination, the passive-aggressive communicator.
Ah, yes, the masters of subtle digs and backhanded compliments. They might agree verbally, but their actions undermine their words. Think muttering under their breath,
Right.
giving the silent treatment,
Yeah.
or talking behind people's backs.
Ugh. Passive-aggressive behavior, it's the worst.
Yeah.
It creates so much tension and distrust.
It really erodes relationships, which is why the book highlights assertive communication as the most effective style for healthy interactions.
Okay. So assertive communicators, are they the ones who kind of speak their minds clearly and respectfully?
Precisely.
Yeah.
They express their needs and opinions directly, but they also listen to others
Okay.
and seek mutually beneficial solutions.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to say no when necessary, but they do it with grace and consideration.
It sounds like assertive communication is that sweet spot
Yes.
between being a pushover and being a steamroller.
Exactly. It's about advocating for yourself while respecting the needs of others. And guess what? How to read people like a book.
Yeah.
It even provides actionable tips on how to become a more assertive communicator.
Okay, tell me more. I'm always up for leveling up my communication skills.
Well, the book suggests practicing I statements to express your feelings without blaming others. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt me,"
Right.
try saying, "I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted."
Oh, okay. That's a subtle shift,
Right.
but I see how that would make a difference.
Yeah.
What other tips does the book offer?
It also encourages maintaining eye contact, actively listening to understand the other person's perspective, and addressing objections directly.
So it's about being confident, clear,
Right.
and respectful all at the same time. I like it.
Okay, good.
Okay. Now, let's delve into a topic that's both intriguing and a bit sneaky. Lie detection.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, don't tell me you haven't fantasized about having a built-in lie detector.
It's the tempting thought, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is, becoming better at spotting lies is less about having a superpower and more about understanding human behavior.
Uh-huh.
And the book emphasizes the importance of establishing a baseline.
Okay.
This means observing someone's typical behavior when they're telling the truth,
Okay.
so you can notice those deviations when they might be fibbing.
So it's about paying attention to those subtle shifts in their demeanor, their body language, their speech patterns.
Exactly. It's like having a reference point for honesty.
Right.
But here's the thing. While the book outlines those common lie detection cues, it also emphasizes that none of these cues are foolproof.
Oh, okay.
What might be a sign of deception for one person
Yeah.
could just be their normal nervous habit.
So context is key. We can't just jump to conclusions based on one isolated behavior.
Absolutely. You need to consider the overall picture, the cluster of cues,
Mhm.
and the specific situation. Is there a reason for this person to be nervous, even if they're telling the truth?
Right.
Are the stakes high?
Yeah.
All these factors play a role.
How to read people, like a book, debunks that common myth about eye direction, indicating lying.
Right.
You know, look left, you're lying, look right, you're telling the truth.
Right, right.
It's not that simple.
It's not that simple. Eye direction is more about individual mannerisms and cognitive processing. There's no magic formula.
So it's about being observant, but also avoiding those simplistic assumptions. Okay, now let's shift gears and tackle a question that has puzzled philosophers for ages. Why do people do what they do?
Yes.
What motivates us?
Oh, the mysteries of human motivation.
I know. I'm all ears.
So the book introduces a framework for understanding motivation known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay.
Think of it as a pyramid, with each level representing a different type of need that drives human behavior.
Okay, let's climb this pyramid of needs. What's at the base?
At the bottom are those physiological needs, the essentials for survival,
Mm-hmm.
like food, water, shelter, and sleep.
Okay.
Until these basic needs are met, they tend to dominate our behavior. Think about how hard it is to focus on anything else when you're hungry or exhausted.
It's true. I'm definitely not my best self when I'm hangry.
I get that.
So what's the next level up?
Okay. Once those physiological needs are met, we move up to safety needs. Security, stability, protection from harm. This explains why people prioritize things like financial security, a safe home,
Right.
and a stable job. They're seeking that sense of predictability and control in their environment.
It's about feeling safe and secure in the world. Okay, that makes sense. What comes after safety?
Then we have love and belonging. That need for connection, intimacy, friendship, and family.
Yeah.
Humans are social creatures and we crave those meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
And this need drives us to seek out social groups, build communities, and form close bonds with others.
Okay, so from basic survival to social connection, it's amazing to see how these needs build on each other.
It is.
What's next on Maslow's pyramid?
As we continue our ascent, we reach esteem needs, the desire for achievement, recognition, respect, and self-esteem.
Okay.
This need drives us to pursue our goals, strive for excellence, and seek validation from others.
It's that drive to feel good about ourselves and our accomplishments.
Exactly.
What's at the top?
And finally, at the peak of the pyramid, we have self-actualization, the need to fulfill our potential, to become the best versions of ourselves.
Okay.
This is about living a life that aligns with our values, pursuing our passions, and making a meaningful contribution to the world.
Wow. From basic survival to finding our purpose in life. It's quite a journey.
It is. Maslow even proposed a sixth level, transcendence,
Okay.
which goes beyond self-actualization and involves connecting to something greater than ourselves, whether it's through spirituality, creativity, or a deep sense of purpose.
Okay. So this hierarchy really helps us understand why people do what they do, even those seemingly irrational actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we kind of connect this to the bigger picture, we can start to see how people's actions, even those that seem illogical, often stem from a desire to fulfill one of these needs.
So someone who's constantly seeking attention
Right.
might be driven by a need for esteem, while someone who's overly cautious might be prioritizing safety and security. It's like their actions are clues to their underlying motivations.
That's a great way to put it. And what's fascinating is that these needs aren't always conscious.
Oh, wow.
People might not even realize what's driving their behavior. It's like a subconscious script
Yeah.
guiding their actions.
How to read people, like a book, even touches on the concept of selfish altruism.
Yeah.
The idea that even seemingly selfless acts can serve our own needs in some way.
Right. Adds another layer of complexity to the concept of motivation.
It does.
Are we ever truly selfless? Or is there always an element of self-interest at play? It's something to ponder.
So we can't always take people's actions at face value, right?
Right.
There might be deeper motivations at play. Okay, so now let's move on to, I guess, the silent conversation that our bodies are having. Body language
Yes.
is a rich source of information that often reveals more than our words ever could.
Absolutely.
I'm so fascinated by body language. It's like a secret code waiting to be deciphered.
And How to Read People Like a Book
Yeah.
gives a really excellent overview of those key body language cues,
Okay.
from facial expressions
Uh-huh.
to posture to gestures
Yeah.
to the use of space.
Okay, let's decode some of those nonverbal signals. What should we be paying attention to?
One of the most revealing areas is facial expressions. Our eyes, in
Hmm.
particular, can convey a wealth of information.
Okay.
For example, pupil dilation can indicate interest or attraction, while blinking rate can signal stress or anxiety.
So if someone's pupils are wide while I'm talking,
It could be.
it's a good sign.
It could be a sign of engagement, yes. And pay attention to eyebrow movements as well. Raised eyebrows can signal surprise or skepticism, while furrowed brows might indicate confusion or concern.
So it's like our faces are constantly broadcasting our thoughts and feelings, even when we're trying to, like, keep a poker face.
Absolutely.
Our hands and arms are also incredibly expressive, right?
They are. A firm handshake can convey confidence, while fidgeting or wringing our hands can signal nervousness or anxiety.
What about those classic gestures, like, crossing your arms?
Yeah.
Does that always mean someone is closed off?
Not necessarily. The book emphasizes that body language is highly contextual.
Okay.
Crossing our arms might simply mean we're cold,
Oh, okay.
or it could be a way of creating a sense of personal space in a crowded environment.
So we really need to avoid those simplistic interpretations.
Exactly. Pay attention to the overall picture, the combination of cues,
Right.
and the specific context.
What about posture? Does slouching always mean someone is lacking confidence?
Again, it depends. Slouching might indicate tiredness or discomfort, or it could be a sign of relaxation and ease.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to look for changes in posture.
Okay.
If someone suddenly sits up straight or squares their shoulders, it might signal a shift in their attitude or attention.
So we're looking for those subtle changes
Yeah.
that reveal a shift in their kind of internal state. What other body language cues should we be aware of?
The book dives into the fascinating world of proxemics, the study of personal space. The distance we maintain from others
Okay.
can reveal the nature of our relationships and our comfort levels. Standing too close to someone we've just met might send the wrong message,
Yeah.
while being too distant from someone we're close to can create a sense of emotional disconnect.
Yeah. It's about finding that comfortable balance.
Right.
But personal space preferences can also vary across cultures, can't they?
Absolutely. What's considered an appropriate distance in one culture
Right.
might be too close or too far in another. The book emphasizes the importance of cultural awareness when interpreting those nonverbal cues.
So we need to be mindful of those cultural differences to avoid misinterpretations.
Okay, now let's talk about a concept that might blow your mind. Thin slicing.
Okay.
What is thin slicing?
Thin slicing is the ability to make accurate judgments about people
Okay.
based on very limited information, those thin slices of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing patterns and drawing conclusions from those brief observations.
Yeah. The book mentions thin slicing in the context of speed dating.
Judging someone's personality based on their social media profiles and
Yeah.
even sensing a lie based on someone's fleeting facial expressions.
Yeah.
And it's like our brains are constantly making those snap judgments.
That's right. And the amazing thing is that research shows that thin slicing can be surprisingly accurate.
Really?
Our brains are wired to pick up on those subtle cues and make quick assessments even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Wow. It's like having a supercomputer in our heads constantly analyzing data and making predictions.
It is. But while thin slicing can be incredibly accurate,
Yeah.
it's essential to remember its limitations. Our snap judgments aren't always accurate, and they can be influenced by our own biases and experiences.
Right. So we need to be aware of those potential biases and avoid jumping to conclusions without sufficient evidence.
Exactly. Thin slicing can be a valuable tool,
Uh-huh.
but it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
We need to balance our intuition with critical thinking and gather more information before making any major decisions.
So it's about using a thin slicing as a starting point for exploration,
Yes.
not as the definitive answer.
Correct.
Wow, we've covered so much ground already.
I know. And a lot like.
From personality types to communication styles to lie detection to body language to thin slicing. It's like we're unlocking the secrets of human behavior.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, so what's coming up in part 2?
Well, in part 2, we're going to delve deeper into reading between the lines, mastering the art of thin slicing, and exploring our own personal communication styles. Stay tuned.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive.
So last time, we uncovered some really fascinating insights about personality types and communication styles, and even how to spot a lie.
Right.
But now I'm really curious about how to read between the lines.
It's a valuable skill because sometimes, what people say isn't exactly what they mean.
Right, it's like they're speaking in code.
Exactly.
Thankfully, How to Read People Like a Book gives us some strategies for, decoding those hidden messages. Right.
Where do we start?
Well, it starts with becoming a better listener.
Okay.
And I don't mean just passively hearing the words,
Right.
but actively absorbing their meaning.
So not just hearing, but really listening.
Precisely. It's about paying attention to those nuances, like the tone, word choices, even those, pregnant pauses.
Yeah.
The book really emphasizes the importance of active listening, so we need to engage with the speaker, ask clarifying questions, and reflect back what we've heard to make sure we're on the same page.
It makes sense.
Active listening really demonstrates that you're present in the conversation and that you genuinely value what the other person is saying.
Yeah.
It creates that safe space for a more authentic and meaningful connection.
I like that. It's about building that connection and rapport through, genuine engagement.
Right.
Okay, so active listening.
And when you're actively listening, pay attention to the speaker's tone of voice.
Okay.
Is it hesitant, confident, sarcastic, or maybe even a bit defensive?
Right.
The tone can completely change the meaning of words. It's like the emotional soundtrack to the conversation.
Exactly. And then there are those subtle word choices.
Yeah.
Those descriptive words that really add a depth and nuance to language.
Yeah, the book gave a great example of the difference between saying, I walked quickly versus I walked.
Right.
That word quickly adds a whole other layer of information.
It does. It suggests a sense of urgency or purpose. So why were they walking quickly? Were they late, eager, or maybe trying to escape an awkward situation? Those little details can make a big difference in understanding the true message.
So it's like being a word detective,
Right. Okay.
picking up on those subtle clues.
Yes. And remember, sometimes what's not said is just as important as what I said.
Oh, that's interesting.
Those silences, those pauses can be incredibly revealing.
And I never thought about it like that.
It's like the spaces between the notes in a piece of music.
Uh-huh.
They create the rhythm and flow. To understand the complete message, you need to look at the holistic picture. The words, the tone of voice, the body language, and even those unspoken moments.
Okay, so it's really about integrating all those pieces of information to form like a comprehensive understanding.
That's right.
Now, sometimes, those pieces might seem kind of contradictory.
Yeah.
Like, what happens when someone's words say one thing, but their body language is suggesting something else?
Well, that's when we need to trust our gut instinct,
Hmm.
right? But we also need to consider the context and the relationship.
Right. Don't jump to conclusions based on just one isolated inconsistency.
Exactly. Use your intuition, but balance it with critical thinking.
Okay.
And if you're still unsure, you can always just ask for clarification.
Right. Just be direct.
Absolutely. Saying something like, I hear you saying this, but I'm sensing something else. Can you help me understand? Can really open up a more honest and productive conversation.
Okay, so it's about having the courage to address those discrepancies and seek, greater clarity.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about those, those sneaky little phrases that can
Oh.
have, hidden meanings.
I love those.
Those verbal cues that sound harmless on the surface, but they might actually be revealing, a deeper truth.
Right. For instance, someone who constantly says, I don't care what anyone thinks, might actually be deeply insecure and worried about others' opinions.
Yeah, that's true.
Or someone who says, it's not you, it's me, might be trying to let you down gently, but the real reason is that they're just not that into you.
Ouch.
How to read people, like a book, provides a whole arsenal of these phrases. I'm just crazy like that. I have to learn for myself. Do I look fat in this?
Yeah.
Each one can have those multiple layers of meaning depending on the context and the speaker's delivery.
It's like learning a whole secret language.
It is.
But mastering this language requires us to, pay attention to those subtle hints and read between the lines.
Absolutely. Remember, communication is a complex dance of words, tone, and body language. To truly understand someone, we need to be aware of all those intricate cues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now let's revisit that fascinating concept of thin slicing.
Okay.
I'm still amazed by the idea that we can make those accurate judgments about people based on such limited information.
Me too. It's like having a superpower.
It is. And research has shown that our brains are incredibly adept at processing vast amounts of information in a flash.
Wow.
We pick up on those subtle cues and form conclusions even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Yeah.
It's like having a supercomputer in our heads, constantly analyzing data and making predictions.
That's a great analogy.
But while thin slicing can be incredibly accurate,
Yeah.
it's essential to remember its limitations.
Okay.
Our snap judgments can be influenced by our own biases and experiences.
Right.
So again, we need to be aware of those potential biases and avoid jumping to conclusions prematurely.
It's about being aware.
Right? Thin slicing is a valuable tool, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. We need to balance our intuition with critical thinking and gather more information before making any major decisions.
So it's about using thin slicing as a starting point
Yes.
for exploration, not the definitive answer.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Now let's have some fun busting those common body language myths
Okay.
that have been circulating for ages.
Okay.
We've all heard those, like so-called rules.
Yeah.
Crossing your arms means you're closed off. Avoiding eye contact means you're lying.
Right.
Right.
I feel like those are, overly simplistic.
Exactly. And the book debunks many of those myths.
Okay.
For instance, crossing your arms might simply mean you're cold, or trying to create personal space in a crowded room. And avoiding eye contact might be a cultural norm or a sign of shyness, not necessarily deception.
Right. I never thought about that.
So it seems like context is always key when interpreting body language.
Yeah. It's about looking at the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Body language is fluid and highly dependent on the situation.
Mm.
What might be a sign of confidence in one context could be a sign of arrogance in another.
Okay.
One of the most important myths the book debunks is the idea that there's a right way to use body language.
Oh, interesting.
We don't need to follow a rigid set of rules or try to force unnatural postures.
That makes sense.
The most genuine and effective communication comes from authenticity.
Yeah.
So relax, be yourself, and let your body language flow naturally.
Okay.
So ditch those cheesy pickup artist techniques and those power posing strategies.
Ditch them.
Embracing your own unique communication style is far more powerful than trying to mimic someone else's.
Okay, so be yourself.
Right. It's about being comfortable in your own skin and letting your true personality shine through.
I like that a lot.
And remember, the most powerful communication tool is genuine connection.
Uh-huh.
When we approach interactions with empathy, curiosity, and a desire to understand others, our body language will reflect that authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's what builds those strong, lasting relationships.
Okay, I like that. That's good advice.
Now let's shift the focus inward and explore those different communication styles.
Okay.
Understanding our own preferences and how they might differ from others is crucial for navigating those sometimes tricky interpersonal waters.
It's true.
That's where we'll pick up in part 3.
Okay, looking forward to it. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring how to read people like a book, but now it's time to turn the spotlight inward, right?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, How to Read People Like a Book outlines 4 main types of communicators.
Okay.
Analytical, intuitive, functional, and personal. I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Which one am I?
Well, let's find out. Let's start with the analytical communicator.
Okay.
They really thrive on data, logic, those objective facts. They want to see the evidence before forming an opinion.
Okay, so they're like the data scientists of communication.
Exactly. They're always looking for those hard numbers and concrete proof.
Right, very factual, data-driven.
Right. Analytical communicators are very precise in their language, choosing their words carefully and avoiding emotional outbursts. They excel at problem solving and critical thinking, but they might come across as detached or unemotional to those who communicate differently.
Right, so if I'm like an analytical communicator, I might want to work on expressing more empathy
Yes.
and connecting with others on like a more emotional level.
Right. Finding that balance between logic and emotion
Yeah.
can really make you a more well-rounded communicator.
That makes sense. Okay. What about intuitive communicators?
Okay, so intuitive communicators, they're the big picture thinkers.
Right.
They see patterns and connections that others often miss.
Okay.
They kind of grasp the essence of an idea without needing all the details.
Mm-hmm.
They're the visionaries, the innovators, the ones who can connect the dots and come up with those aha moments.
Okay, so like the creative geniuses.
They can be, but their challenge really lies in communicating those insights to others
Right.
who might not process information the same way.
Right, because they're kind of up here and everyone else is down.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they may need to slow down, break down their ideas into smaller steps, and provide more concrete examples.
Okay, so it's about bridging that communication gap,
Right.
meeting others where they are.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, that's next.
Okay, next up we have the functional communicators.
Okay.
They thrive on structure, order, a step-by-step approach.
So they love a good plan.
Yes, a good plan and a well-organized to-do list.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
They value thoroughness and attention to detail, making sure everything is done efficiently and effectively.
Okay.
They're the backbone of any project, ensuring that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
So they're very reliable.
Yes, incredibly reliable and organized.
And probably very valuable in the workplace.
Extremely valuable, but their challenge lies in adapting to change
Okay.
and embracing spontaneity.
So they don't like when things go off the rails.
Not so much. They might need to loosen up a bit, allow for some flexibility, and recognize that sometimes the best solutions emerge from those unexpected detours.
Oh, that's a good point. So it's about finding that balance between order and adaptability.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's our last type of communicator?
And finally, we have the personal communicators.
Okay.
And they really prioritize those relationships, empathy, and emotional connection.
So they're like the heart and soul of any group.
Of any group, yes.
Okay.
Personal communicators are excellent listeners, offering support and understanding.
Okay.
They can read emotions like a book and navigate those complex interpersonal dynamics with grace and sensitivity. They're the glue that holds relationships together.
They sound wonderful.
They're amazing people.
But I imagine they need to set boundaries, right?
Yes.
And you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. They also need to avoid that emotional burnout.
Yeah.
They need to prioritize their own needs and recognize that they can't always be the emotional caretaker for everyone.
Right. It's finding that balance between empathy and self-preservation.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have all these different types of communicators.
Right.
And, it's important to remember that none of these communication styles is better than the others.
Correct.
They each have their own strengths
Absolutely.
and weaknesses. And I guess the key is to be self-aware, right?
Yes.
To be aware of our own preferences and how they might impact our interactions with other people.
It's about recognizing those patterns in ourselves and in others.
Yeah.
So we can communicate more effectively.
And remembering that we don't have to be fixed in one style, right?
Exactly.
We can adapt
Absolute.
flex our communication muscles depending on the situation.
That's the key, the flexibility.
Well, here we are at the end of our deep dive
Okay, no.
into how to read people like a book. It's been a fascinating journey.
I think so too.
We've explored so much, from
Hmm.
personality types to body language to communication styles.
Yep.
And, what I've really learned is that understanding people, it's not about mastering a set of techniques.
Oh, right.
It's more about approaching every interaction with curiosity, empathy, a genuine desire to connect.
I agree with that.
It's about being present, being mindful, being observant.
Yes.
And I guess the most important takeaway for me
Yeah.
is that the more we understand ourselves and others,
Right.
the better we can build those bridges of understanding and
Yeah.
create those stronger relationships, navigate this complex world of human interaction
Right.
with more confidence and compassion.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of human behavior. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.